Доброго дня, це медіа-центр Україна Одеса. Ми розпочинаємо наш робочий.
Good afternoon, this is Media Center Ukraine Odesa. We start our day with the briefing dedicated to the Turkey election. Now our guest is Iliya Kusa, analyst at the Ukrainian Institute for the Future. Good afternoon, can you hear me? Yes. How do you think the Turkish, what will be the results for Ukraine of the Turkish elections? I think that the main conclusion to my opinion, is that it is more correct to say that Erdogan won elections, that the opposition lost. Turkish opposition could not use its potential at this election and will wait for 5 more years. And I think that their chances will not decrease. The elections have demonstrated that there is a decline in support of Erdogan in regions comparing to the previous elections, as well as his party is not supported anymore to the level that they had at the previous parliamentary elections. I believe that these elections were the most difficult for Erdogan, and for the first time he had to face the second tour. And this means that it is getting more difficult for him to gain the political support that he used to have. I believe that this is the last presidential term for Erdogan, and the elections have demonstrated that the big part of the population is tired of his reign. And we can see a split in the Turkish society, 50 by 50%. The trend has been preserved since 2017. In 2017, where there was the constitutional referendum of Erdogan to shift to super-presidential republic, 51% supported that, and 48% did not support. In 2018, there was also almost 50 by 50 result. So we can see the split in the society. And the recent elections have demonstrated that in 5 years it is possible that other candidates will participate during the next elections. So perhaps Erdogan will not participate. Perhaps someone from his team will participate instead of him, and this could be representatives of law enforcement bodies. They are quite powerful candidates. And from the opposition, we can also expect some other candidate. For Kemal Kılıçdaroğlu, it was a difficult year, and perhaps this loss is his personal loss, because actually it was his idea that he insisted to be the single candidate from all opposition parties, because actually he is not the most popular opposition politician. There's Marian Karif, and I do not expect that Kılıçdaroğlu will be the leader of the opposition in the future. Karim İmamoğlu, the mayor of Istanbul, could become the leader. I believe that the fact that there was the second tour of the election, it is good for the legitimacy of Erdogan. If he won during the first batch with 1% or 2%, there could be doubts in the legitimacy of Erdogan. But now everything is clear. There is 5% difference, but this is quite normal number that were also confirmed by the opposition. And that's why there are no mass rules. And that means that the Turkish society is okay with the result. Before we shift to the Ukrainian aspect, I have one more question about Erdogan. The upcoming 5 years of a super presidential republic could be used by Erdogan to become even more powerful. I don't remember how long time Erdogan has been the president, around 15%, but he can know so that there is a significant support among the side of the opposition, and what he could do. And actually, Erdogan has been in the ruling circles for 20 years in different roles, but after 2018, people said the same, that he will try to strengthen his position, and actually that's what he tried to do. And of course, he does everything possible to increase his image, and he actually used it during this election. And the main campaign, the main message of the campaign was that everything that he did was correct, was right, and that people should support him. I think that we should expect no changes in the upcoming 5 years, and I believe that Erdogan will not be a candidate for the next election. I think that he will strengthen his team. He wants to leave his political heritage. For him not to be cancelled if the opposition wins. And he needs to prepare the political transit. And for that, he needs candidates or a candidate from his team, some officials with positive image or reputation, with good initial ratings, and who have functions which are important for the country, take into account Erdogan's narrative. This could be representatives of the law enforcement bloc. Hakan Fidan could be appointed for the position of the Prime Minister of Turkey, and he represents the intelligence service. And if it's so, I think that he could be a person that can become an element of such political transition. These are my expectations. As for Ukrainian issue, yes. I would like to clarify what I mean. Because we have a connection with Turkey through Grain Initiative, and we also have connections in our cooperation in the military area. We could speak about Bayraktars. And actually, Turkey also serves as a mediator between in the relations of Russia and Ukraine, at least in Grain Initiative. But I think that it is not limited only by the initiative. Taking into consideration that during the election campaign, Erdogan talked about Russia, Ukraine, the United States, that Turkey should remain neutral, so they have already used that card. What could be the results? How do you think? I don't expect any fundamental changes as for Ukrainian track. Foreign policy was not the factor that affected the choice of people. It was not even among the 10 top questions that affected the results of the election. The internal issue was dominant, and the Ukrainian question could not affect the results of the election. So there were surveys that tried to identify the issues that were important for the electorate, but Ukraine was not among the top answers. Erdogan does not have any significant motivation to change the political vector of his country. And I don't think that we should also expect some personal reasons for him to change his attitude, because the message of Turkey, this is an attempt to keep balance in the triangle of Russia, Ukraine, and the West, and this is beneficial for Ukraine, for Turkish interests. So there is no sense to change anything. According to, due to its mediation, due to this balance, Turkey can preserve the trade and commercial relations with the Ukraine, the EU, and NATO. Turkey is automatically involved in all possible future negotiations because Turkey is a mediator and it is very difficult to do without them. And they want to be the cornerstone of these negotiations, as it was in the past during negotiations in Istanbul. And Turkey can also be a guarantor for different agreements like Green Initiative because they have trust of both parties, and that's why they could guarantee the initiative. And it is very important for Turkey because it allows Turkey to improve its reputation among the beneficiary countries. Turkey, is a country that solves the issue with famine in Africa. So we can argue this, but what they use it to improve their image in the world. And this also helps them to kind of cement its impact, its role in any negotiations between Russia and Ukraine, and in the future with regard to their bilateral relations. And Green Initiative could be like a future model of Russia-Ukraine relations, depending on the results of the war. So everything is okay for Turkey, and Erdogan has always emphasized that his position towards Russia and Ukraine is correct, and it is supported by the population. Most Turks believe that they should be neutral in the war, and it is not mentioned by Erdogan, but all of us understand that this neutral status, the status of mediator, allows Turkey to continue earning money, to trade with Russia, Ukraine, to import gas, to build different hubs with different countries, including Russia, to preserve relations with Russia with regard to the regional security. This is the Syrian issue, which is very important for Turkey, especially when they are now on the stage of normalization of the political relations with Syria, and also there is the conflict between Azerbaijan and Armenia as for Nagorno Karabakh. The Green Initiative was prolonged, and the vessels from Nikolaev were able to leave, and Turkey and Erdogan told that it was his result, his gain. I have the following question. Am I right in understanding that the gap between those who support Erdogan and those who support opposition is the gap between the city and the cities and rural areas, as it was in Hungary? And is it really so? And if it is so, could it result in further Islamization of the state that was created as the civil one? This is partially so, but if we look at the results of the elections in the cities and in the regions, we can see that quite a lot of people in cities supported Erdogan. And most Turks living in Germany, the Turkish that living in big cities, they also voted for Erdogan. And these Turks in Germany, for example, and the Turkish diaspora in many countries of the EU supported Erdogan. There is the gap between the rural areas and cities. For example, life in Istanbul is different from life in rural areas. And in big cities like Istanbul or Izmir, really more people supported the opposition. But this is only a part of the bigger image. There is the issue of people's profit. the choice was affected by the issue of trust when it comes to finding solutions to key problems, key challenges. And these elections have proved that people still trust Erdogan and his team when it comes to solving people's problems. For example, the regions that suffered the February earthquake supported Erdogan. This means that people believe promises of Erdogan to reconstruct their houses, to fight corruption in the regions that partially led to such huge damages caused by the earthquake. So people have decided that they should better have Erdogan because they feel that there is a stable policy instead of the Turkish opposition, which is quite diverse. There are 6 or 7 different leaders. All of them have their own ambitions. They are independent, and for many people, it was quite dangerous to support the opposition. And this is really very important that the areas suffering the earthquake supported Erdogan, because first it was told that Erdogan, not Erdogan, but his party, were the reason why there were construction permissions issued with the violation of the construction standards. Yes, and actually, the issue of construction certification dates back to the 1960s. Turkish companies violate standards in construction, but there were also was the issue of the construction amnesties, and they are quite popular in Turkey. And the companies who violated standards, who breached standards, were the subjects of such amnesties. Such amnesties were announced by all the governments, and including the government of Erdogan. So the problem is there. But in the regions, they've decided that Erdogan will fulfill his promise that the thousands of new houses will be constructed as promised by Erdogan, and that there will be investments in the damaged regions. And now people will just monitor the situation in the next 5 years. Thank you. And perhaps the last question, which is related to the foreign policy. And perhaps this is not the question of the Turkish citizens, but this is more of our interest. Almost at once, when there were official results of the elections in Turkey, Biden offered Erdogan kind of exchange, new F-16 fighters, and in exchange to the Erdogan's veto on Switzerland and Finland, and I have seen that they've got that there are new modifications of F-16 in exchange of Sweden to become the member of NATO. I believe that Erdogan and the NATO states will find a compromise for Sweden to become the member of the alliance. I don't know if they will succeed before the upcoming summit, because it depends a lot on the will of Erdogan himself. Because actually they also require him to refuse from other requirements, including extradition of those people who are suspected in Turkey in separatism. And they want to do this in exchange of the new fighters. And this is the question to Erdogan, if he agrees to this or not. I believe that there are chances because the election already in the past, and there is no risk for Erdogan to look weak political figure. That's why he could consent to such compromise, because and he wanted to get F-16 and he required those fighters, and in exchange he also offered to lift his veto on the Swedish issue. And he could not do that in peaceful times. And I think that they will be able to find an agreement. I'm not sure that it will be till July, but the probability is still there. The aim of Erdogan is to come to an agreement because he doesn't want in general to prevent Sweden from entering NATO. He just wants to get the price for that. And the country is currently integrated in the NATO structures. And actually, the fact that Sweden is not there in the NATO does not damage the country. So that was not the initiative of Biden. He just responded to the wish of Erdogan. He waited till the end of the election and just responded to Erdogan's offer. And this is not an answer, this is more like a proposal. So they say that only F-16, and there is kind of a subjective factor now. Will these fighters be enough for Erdogan? Or if Erdogan will try to use the fact that the elections are over, trying to get something else from the United States and Sweden. Perhaps it could be related to the Syrian issue because it is a very important factor in the relations between the United States and Turkey. Thank you. Thank you. That was Iliya Kusa, analyst at the Ukrainian Institute for the Future. We will hope to see you here online or offline if you're in Odesa. Thank you. Thank you very much. I would like to thank Mr. Kusa once again. Our next briefing will be at noon in 40 minutes. Please stay tuned. Please visit our media center.